Yeah, I was disappointed she wouldn't eat his grilled cheese too.
That's
I mean,
fair.
as a chef, I felt bad for him.
Drive the highway down the moon, past the billboard where you see me, see me, ask the people for their king.
Welcome back to the Silver Nitrate Witches Movie Review Brew, the podcast where we talk about how we talk about movies, and we are your Silver Nitrate Witches. I'm Isabel Lang. I'm a writer, academic editor, and tarot reader.
And I'm Laura Valenza. I'm film editor at the Brooklyn Rail, and I'm also a writer.
And today we are diving into a topical film about
writers
and fashion, and quite possibly the strangest grilled cheese known to humankind. And that is the 2006 film The Devil Wears Prada, starring, of course, the diamond of our season, Anne Hathaway. I don't actually watch Bridgerton, but I know that's a thing of like the diamond of the season.
I don't actually watch Bridgerton either.
Oh, perfect. Okay, so Bridgerton
I watched
fans.
the first season. That's
Me
it.
too. I might watch the next one because there's like lesbians in it apparently.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah. Anyway, so Devil Wears Prada. Timely, of course, because the sequel is coming out later this year. Very literally like 20 years after, like almost 20 years to the day after the original came out in 2006. The original was released in the summer of 2006 and was directed by David Frankel, who I did have to Google a lot because I was like, is this guy related to Bethany Frankel, the Real Housewife? He is not.
Thank you for looking into that
Yes,
for
you're
our
welcome.
listeners.
And what most people probably will recognize him from is directing a couple of episodes of Sex and the City. He was really involved in that.
Oh.
He also did Marley and Me, which is like a dog movie with Jennifer Aniston that I remember being pretty
Really
popular when it came
depressing.
out. Yeah, well, it's a dog movie. Do they make any other kind of dog movies that aren't depressing?
That's true.
Yeah. As well as a couple episodes of The Morning Show and Inventing Anna, which I know you and I were really interested in whenever it first came out.
I liked Inventing Anna. I liked the first season of The Morning Show, and then I thought it was terrible.
No, I don't know what season David Frankel directed, so...
Sorry, David. It wasn't the first season.
But he is also the director of the upcoming sequel, which I think I have the date. Yeah, it's scheduled for release on May 1st of this year. The original from 2006 is based on the novel of the same name by Lauren Weisberger. And similar to the Princess Diaries film, the adaptation rights were purchased before the book was completed. So while the book was still in production, they purchased the rights to make it a film. But it didn't go into production until after the movie came out, once Meryl Streep was cast. Like, that's when it got the green light, where they were like, okay, we can finally move forward. We've got Miranda Priestley. Weisberger did not adapt the screenplay. Instead, that writer was Aileen Brosh McKenna, who also wrote some of my favorite movies, honestly, such as Laws of Attraction. Do you ever see that movie? It's got
No.
Pierce Brosnan.
No, I have
and-
not seen it.
Oh, somebody else, one of the red-haired ladies. I can't remember her name. Oh, I'm gonna feel really dumb.
Like Sigourney Weaver?
Julianne Moore.
Oh.
I knew it
Did
started
she
with
have
a
red
J.
hair?
Yes, or maybe more auburn.
Okay.
I don't know. It's like a super cute rom-com. It's like low-key one of my favorites. Sleepover.
I have not seen that either.
Oh my god, that was such an important part of my childhood, Laura. We need you to watch Sleepover. And 27 Dresses. Right, there we go. I knew we'd get you on one.
27 Dresses. Oh my god, what's the actor's name in that? I adored him so much.
Oh, shoot, what is his name? He's in The Notebook.
He was my ideal form of scruffy.
He's a good scruff. I'll give him that.
He is a good scruff.
James Marsden.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, great guy. Okay. She is also returning as the writer for the sequel, Devil Wears Prada 2.
Oh,
You look
nice,
like you had
okay.
something to say. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I like James Marsden because he reminds me a lot of Penn Badgley, who I also really like.
Oh, yeah. They do have a similar vibe. Yes, yes, yes.
They do. Mhm.
Okay.
Good hair.
So based on the information we do know about the sequel, just from like the trailers and stuff, it doesn't seem to be following the plot of the book's sequel. The book also has a sequel that came out in like the 2010s called Revenge Wears Prada. And as far as
Not
again,
as good as Devil, but still good.
it's still good. And again, as far as I'm aware, it's not following the plot of that. It's like, similar to what we talked about with the Princess Diaries. A lot of people are saying, like, consider them separate entities. And I just wanted to stop for a minute because I feel like we've talked about this in other episode recordings before, but before we continue, we have a lot of book adaptations this season.
We do have a lot of book adaptations.
And also, just like other fun patterns, we have 2 movies that we talk about that are franchise reboots of some kind, Get Smart and Ocean's 8. Mm-hmm. And then Armageddon Time is our outlier.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough. Okay, anyway.
Which is interesting, though, because I would argue Armageddon Time feels very literary as far as
does.
movies go.
I actually had to look up to see if, because I know it's sort of like semi-autobiographical, so I was looking up to see if like maybe he had written this. It was like a Power of the Dog kind of thing. But no, as far as I'm aware.
No.
Anyway, The Devil Wears Prada premiered at the LA Film Festival in 2006 with gross earnings of over $320 million. And also earning Streep a Golden Globe for Best Actress in a Musical and Comedy, as well as nominations for Best Lead Actress for the Oscars, BAFTAs, SAG Awards, and Critics' Choice.
Damn, girl.
I know.
She's also from New Jersey. I'm just saying.
See. There we go. Other awards we've got for this movie, costume director Patricia Field, who also worked on Sex and the City.
Those are memorable costumes.
Mm-hmm. She earned an Oscar nomination for her work on this film. Which
Wait. Oh yeah, finish your thought.
She earned an Oscar nomination for her work on this film, and this film is the most expensively costumed movie in history, with the budget coming in at over $1 million, despite tons of loans, like free loans from fashion houses for the production.
I was wondering if they actually, because to really make the movie work, I feel like you'd have to have actual designer
They did
clothing.
have loans from some fashion houses. There were some folks who declined. There are rumors that Anna Wintour was telling people not to work with this movie because very famously, Lauren Weisberger wrote this as sort of like also a semi-autobiographical but really punched up version of her experience working as Anna Wintour's assistant at Vogue.
My hero, my inspiration, Lauren.
So there are rumors that Anna Wintour was telling people don't work on this movie for that reason, but like none of those are substantiated. But Patricia Field did say like, yeah, there were some designers who said like, no, sorry, can't. But there were quite a lot of donations from fashion houses for production. So yeah.
While we're talking about Patricia Field's interesting work on this film, can I just say a lot of the outfits are very early 2000s.
Oh my god, yes! She wears a toe ring at one point, and I had to pause and, like, visually shudder at how early aughts that was.
Okay, I confess I own several toe rings, and I really like them. But anyway, moving on from that.
There's nothing wrong with toe rings, but I was like, that was such a moment where I was like, wow, this is so... If nothing else put us in the early 2000s, this shot of her feet with the toe ring absolutely does.
Also, but, like... And y'all don't get creepy about this. But I have great feet, so it makes sense to accentuate them with a toe ring. Anyway.
Remember anklets? Those were always fun, too.
I also have multiple anklets. Anyway. I just like jewelry. I wear a lot of jewelry. I had to take off 3 bangles in order to record this episode so they wouldn't make noise.
She really did, y'all. Okay. You were going to say something after the 2000s fashion, and I cut you off.
I was, because I was going to say, even though it is very 2000s fashion, rewatching it recently, I was like, there are certain outfits in it that stick in my memory that I still look at, and I'm like, yeah, if I had a lot of money, I wish I could wear that. And that would be the dress she wears to the party at the Met, the black dress.
Yes, that's
And
so
the dress
pretty.
she wears in Paris.
I do love the dress she wears in Paris.
Yeah, with the kind of green and black. Yeah.
There's one dress that Emily wears, and I think it's when Andy first gets her little makeover.
Yeah.
And Emily's talking to the other girl and is, like, floored. And anyway, I just remember looking at this dress Emily wears, and I'm like, that looks just like the Ella dress from Silver Saga Patterns. That's an independent pattern maker.
I love it.
And I've been eyeing their patterns for a while. I unfortunately don't fall into their size range, but they have... Anyway, I was like, that's just like the fucking Silver Saga dress from... that's amazing. So, like, yeah, there's definitely some timeless silhouettes. Most of them are on Miranda, understandably, but there's certainly some things that are very fashionable that would still be pretty fashionable today.
I will also say that when Anne Hathaway's character Andrea gets her makeover, I will forever, whenever I meet somebody named Andrea now, probably default to Andrea and then be like, oh my god, I'm just channeling Miranda Priestley. But anyway, I also, rewatching this movie, when she gets her makeover, I'm like, oh my god, she's so cute. She's got like dark hair with these like blunt bangs and it's very long. And then I was like,
Laura is describing exactly what she looks like currently.
and I was like, oh, I guess I've liked this haircut for a very long
Hot minute, yeah.
Yeah.
The Andrea thing is actually quite interesting because that's a carryover from the book. And the reason why Miranda calls her Andrea in the book is because she is actually British. Which makes it even better for Meryl Streep's Miranda Priestley to call her Andrea, because she has no reason to do that except just
she's
to
just being
fuck her over and
pretentious.
mispronounce her name.
Yeah.
So I kind of like it. Okay, so more about the film. It stars, as I said, our diamond of the season, Anne Hathaway, in the lead role of Andrea, or Andy Sachs. Emily Blunt as Emily, creatively enough, Andy's co-worker. The other assistant she has to work with. We'll get into the assistant hierarchy in a bit. Meryl Streep, of course, as the infamous Miranda Priestley, head of Runway magazine, where the girls work as her assistants. And a handful of other excellent folks like Stanley Tucci, Tracy Toms, who I always forget in this movie. She is Andy's friend Lily. She's also in Rent. That's where a lot of people recognize her from.
Okay.
She's a really great stage actress and a really great vocal performer. And even I learned in
She
researching,
has a beautiful voice, like just beautiful speaking voice.
oh my god, she hits the like boom, power note in the opening of Rent. It's amazing.
Oh.
And I learned from this research for this movie today, there's even a little cameo from Lauren Weisberger herself. She is the twins' nanny. So in the shot where the twins are riding on the train reading their books, she's the nanny that's riding with them.
That's adorable. I love that.
And then something else we've been doing a little recently is just kind of talking about other films that have been released in the time around this to kind of situate us. So other things released that summer in 2006 were Click, which I only mentioned because I actually went to go see that in theaters and was actually surprised at, like, I full on cried at some point. It gets quite serious.
I remember people were really into that movie. I actually never saw it.
It's not bad. It's a decent little watch.
Is it an Adam Sandler movie?
It's an Adam Sandler movie.
Okay.
Also,
You know I have
Christopher
complicated
Walken.
feelings about him.
But Christopher Walken as a Bed Bath & Beyond employee.
I do love Christopher Walken.
As a Bed Bath & Beyond
I know.
employee.
I
just
heard
need
that.
to sink
I heard
in.
that. I'm
Okay.
taking it in. I'm taking it in.
The Lake House also came out that summer. Did you ever see that?
No, and I own the DVD.
Oh, that's another one that'll probably make you cry. That's a good period movie. I'll tell you that.
Okay.
Hard Left also coming out in that summer. The Omen and The Da Vinci Code.
Yeah, those are different.
Pirates
Well,
of the Caribbean,
arguably-
Dead Man's Chest, which is the second one. Arguably, tell me how The Omen and The Da Vinci Code are similar to The Devil Wears Prada, Laura, please.
Well, I don't know anything about The Omen, but Da Vinci Code and Pirates of the Caribbean, I would say, are also workplace dramas. That are funny at times.
Chat, she's not wrong. That's not bad. The Omen has, I would say no, probably not, but not bad. And then the other ones that just kind of stood out to me as memorable from that summer were Little Miss Sunshine, which I've never actually seen, but I know a lot of people love. It's a really good.
Also a workplace drama.
Oh, there you go. How about John Tucker Must Die? Can you shoehorn that into a category?
Wait, I'm working on this. Douchebag Ben.
Oh, there you go.
Which is pretty much every movie, but
I mean, yeah,
I'm cheating
especially
a
in
little
this
bit with
one,
that one.
Okay. All right, so we're going to dive into the plot now, which is a lot. I unwittingly wrote a lot about this plot. So feel free
How long is this movie?
like nine, I don't know. The Devil Prada runtime. Almost 2 hours.
All right.
Okay.
All right, go for it.
Stop me at any point and jump in. All right. Andrea Sachs, known by most as Andy, is a fresh journalism graduate from Northwestern University looking for her first job in the publishing industry. She sends resumes out to every publisher she can think of. Elias Clark, which is the publishing house, gets back to her. HR puts her up for the role of second personal assistant for Miranda Priestley because she needs two, as she is the infamously ruthless editor-in-chief of famed fashion magazine Runway. Everyone around Andy tells her a million girls would kill for this job. I actually had to look that up because even though I watched the movie like 2 nights ago, I couldn't remember if it was kill for this job or die for this job, and I feel like those are 2 very different statements.
Those are different statements.
So everyone tells her a million girls would kill for this job, and everyone at the magazine implies that just spending like even a year working for Miranda opens a ton of doors in the publishing world, not just the fashion world, that most people would only dream of. So despite being visually unfit for the role and vastly underexperienced in the fashion industry, Andy decides to stay on for the opportunity. As she's working there, her coworkers constantly like fuss at her for not taking the work of the magazine seriously. The art director, Nigel, played by Stanley Tucci, says Runway is a place, quote, where so many people would die to work, you only deign to work.
That is such a good line, but I also have lots of thoughts about it.
That whole scene is really interesting. And because of that moment, Andy starts to kind of understand the huge chance she's been handed, just how seriously like the fashion world and the publishing world collide and work together. And she decides to actually kind of, invest herself in the job. She gets a fabulous makeover in the process, of course. And this is where I wrote fabulous being relative, since so many things everyone wears screams early 2000s.
Yeah.
Anyway, once she starts throwing herself more seriously into the work, her personal life takes a turn. So like a night out with her dad to see a Broadway show turns into a nightmare because she has to spend hours on the phone trying to get Miranda out of Miami in the middle of a fucking hurricane. And also, like, look, I know I'm a little biased about hurricane season, living it every single year, but like, who travels to Miami when there's a hurricane coming? Like,
it does seem like something you would bother to look up.
And like, it's
it?
something that even in 2006 you would know well before your flight. So anyway, another day Miranda demands that Andy gets...
Miranda is more than the weather.
Of course. She says, it's just a drizzle, and then like lightning outside the window, and
that's
you see the
actually
palm
a really
trees.
funny bit in the movie.
That is a really good bit. There's lots of good comedic bits. I think that David...
It's really funny.
Frankel did a really good job adding humorous elements to really fucked up scenes like that. Another time, Miranda demands Andy get the unpublished manuscript of the latest Harry Potter book for her children, or risk losing her job. Laura has thoughts.
I would also add that I feel that impossible request was set up to give her an excuse to fire Andy or to make Andy quit, because she's pissed off at her for something else that happened right before that.
Yeah, I think it's when she walks in on Miranda and her husband arguing the night before. Yeah.
Yes.
So, no, for sure. And then, of course, but she makes it work, and she gets to stay.
Because for Miranda, there is no feminism, and there is no personal, it's only professional.
Yes.
Yeah.
Another time, Miranda demands Andy, like, very suddenly. She was not planning to have her attend this benefit, but she decides, like, the day of, she must attend this after-work benefit for Runway. And then she ends up missing Nate's birthday party, her boyfriend. Lots of horrible things happen. But it finally pays her off, sort of, in a way that also kind of bites her in the ass. Miranda asks Andy to accompany her to Paris Fashion Week instead of Emily, who has been preparing for this moment since Andy started at Runway literally months ago.
And she literally has to kick Emily while she's down.
Yes, I was going to say worse. Miranda forces Andy to be the one to tell Emily this news. And even worse, as she's trying to do so, Emily gets hit by a cab and ends up in the hospital.
PPPS.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, like, she wouldn't even be able to go to Paris even if Andy, like, decided to pass up on it. And I also never will understand why Andy doesn't just, like, take the car wreck excuse to be like, I'm so sorry you can't go to Paris. Like, Anyway.
Andy is not really set up as particularly savvy, and she is only like 22 in her defense. I think those of us who are looking at this from the ripe old age of 32 are like, yeah, I would totally use the car.
I have so many thoughts about like age in this movie. Oh my god, we'll get to it. Okay. So then while they're in Paris, a lot of shit goes down. Miranda's husband asks for a divorce. Nigel shares...
Wait, there is a lot of age in this movie. Okay, I'm curious to hear what you think. Sorry, go on. Now that you're saying it, that is actually a big sub-theme.
Yes. Okay, so while in Paris, Miranda finds out her husband asks for a divorce. Nigel shares the news with Andy that he's been asked to like become a business partner with one of Runway's preferred designers, James Holt, as his label goes international, so he gets to leave Runway and kind of work on his own. Andy breaks up with her boyfriend right before she leaves for Paris and ends up hooking up with this other guy, a writer who is affiliated with Runway, whose name is Christian. The morning after their hookup, Andy discovers a mock-up of the new American publication of Runway that James is working on with Jacqueline Follet. Jacqueline is currently the editor of French Runway, who has been slated to take over the American magazine and push Miranda out. And then Andy, who has been like weirdly touched by Miranda's recent divorce news, is like horrified at the idea that they would treat her this way, and like she's being betrayed by the magazine that she built, and so she tries to warn her. But she doesn't get the chance to, and instead just kind of gets stuck at this luncheon, listening to Miranda give a speech, during which she announces that James's new business partner, which as we have recently learned should be Nigel, is actually going to be Jacqueline Follet. So Jacqueline is going to work with James. Miranda gets to keep her possession at Runway. Nigel gets fucked over.
And blonde fuckboy just gets to keep being... No, he betted... blonde fuckboy. That's all. That's his whole storyline. Okay, anyway. With his stupid scarf.
God, yeah.
Yeah.
And so it turns out, as we learn, Miranda knew the whole time that she was trying to be forced out, and she set all this series of events in motion to keep her spot and give Jacqueline some other task to occupy her. So then...
She is a mastermind.
Yes. Out on a limo on their way to the next destination, Andy's like sitting in silence, horrified. Miranda like explains all of this to Andy, actually admiring a little bit the fact that Andy felt like loyal enough to try to warn her of what's going on, and then says that like she sees a lot of herself in Andy,
which horrifies Andy.
Horrifies her. And she says she would never do to Nigel what Miranda did, only for Miranda to reply she already had to Emily by taking her spot in Paris.
You already did. To Emily.
And that's where I think the whole, like, she doesn't take the cop out and tell Emily, oh, you were in a car wreck, I guess you can't go to Paris. And she tells her instead. I feel like that is a moment of, like, Andy realizing, oh, I really did fuck her over. Like, because she very could have easily copped out. But that's my own opinion. Anyway.
Yeah. She kind of she chose to rub it in instead of take away that would have been easier on her and easier on Emily. And true anyway. Mm-hmm. And then she very dramatically throws, is it a BlackBerry? What is the little phone that she has?
I don't know. I don't think I think it's a Sidekick. Do you remember the one where it like flipped the screen up so you could like type on it and then it would slick down?
I always wanted one of those. It did not have one.
In the book, they specifically, I'm pretty sure, describe it as being a razor. Or at the very least, it's a flip phone. And I kind of imagined it being a razor. Which seems more like, because she could, like, in the last moment, so what actually happens is Andy leaves the limo and goes in the other direction. Miranda calls her to figure out where she is, and she throws her phone into the fountain. In the book, I think equally as satisfying, she does answer the phone. She listens to Miranda yell for a second, and then she slams it shut in the very satisfying way you could hang up on somebody with a flip phone. So good.
That is a lost art form, slamming the phone. Yes.
So
I will say too, in the movie, as much as it's a classic like dramatic movie scene to throw the phone in the water, I was a little bit like, that's actually like a very nice historical fountain. It's probably not good to like throw your phone in it. Anyway.
Probably, yes. I also wrote like, only in 2006 could you, in a completely foreign country, having just quit your job, throw your phone away and like still make it home.
I know, like she knows how to do that.
Right?
I don't think I know how to do that.
Okay, so then a while later, like weeks later or whatever, Andy's back in New York. We see her at a job interview for what looks like a smaller like news type of publication. It's called the New York Mirror. I don't think that actually exists.
Also, every time I've seen this movie, no, it doesn't exist, but every time I see this movie, I'm like, oh, that's such like a cool brown leather jacket. I also definitely own a brown leather jacket.
You're just anti-Sax, and that's why you like
I
it.
just really want to be Andy Sachs minus the early 2000s
Fair.
parts.
Fair.
Yeah. And the bad boss.
Yeah. Speaking of, the interviewer tells her that he reached out to Runway for a reference and received back word from Miranda herself that Andy had been the worst assistant she had ever had, but that if he didn't hire her, he'd be a complete idiot.
So cheesy Hollywood ending, but I also eat
We'll talk a little
up.
bit about the
I
cheesy
eat it
ending
up
of the
like
genre kind of
cheese.
thing. Actually, Roger Ebert had some interesting things to say about that.
Friend,
Okay.
sometimes enemy of the pod.
So, tell me what you're thinking.
Well, growing up, this was one of my all-time favorite movies. I watched it a lot. I really liked it. I did not ever read the book. I tried to read the book before this episode, but the New York Public Library has all their copies checked out, and they have not been able to secure me one.
I think probably because the sequel's coming out, it's real popular right now.
Whatever. Anyway. And I think I loved it because I love Anne Hathaway. I think it was fun because 2006 would have been 8th grade for us. Yeah, so I think too it was kind of fun, like having seen Princess Diaries and Ella Enchanted, and now Anne Hathaway's kind of growing up with us, and I really wanted to be a writer, and I wanted to go to New York. So I think this movie and I loved clothes. I loved clothes. Wait a minute, I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. I love clothes. I finally admit to myself while watching home renovation shows that whenever I'm like, that is so gluttonous for them to turn an entire room into a closet, I finally admitted that. But, like, I could also definitely fill an entire room as my closet.
Don't you have 2 closets in your house and they're both full? Or do you just have the one?
No, I just have one.
Oh, okay.
It's
never mind.
really tragic. I have one, and then I have a
It's
lot of hiding.
I have 3 closets and half of one is filled with clothes.
Yeah,
And Laura hates it.
yeah. I have
The other
one
half is
closet.
filled with fabric, so it's clothes at some
Pre-clothes.
point. Pre-clothes.
Clothes embryos. So anyway, loved the clothes, love her hair, love that she wants to be a writer in New York, love that she has a boyfriend who cooks her food, and, just generally kind of wanted to be her. And so I love this movie. I thought it was really funny and really good. But it is interesting coming back to it as an adult who does live in New York and is a writer in New York and is looking at all of the incredibly toxic work environments in this movie that are portrayed as problematic and yet at the same time weirdly normalized. And I have a lot of complicated feelings about that.
Okay, yes.
Back to you, Belle.
I want to talk about like growing up with Anne Hathaway and then growing up with this character. And it's unfortunate because none of the critics really seem to talk about that. Like sort of her age and her naivete as a character, which is interesting.
I feel like this movie would not work if she was any older. Like,
No.
it's gotta be that first job out of college.
Yes.
That is
Yes.
this movie.
So similar to Ella Enchanted, I actually really resisted this movie when it came out because I am such a huge fan of the book. And it is my favorite book, period. And I love to tell people that because I'm like, yes, I have 3 English degrees and my favorite book is The Devil Wears Prada.
Wait, I'm sorry. I thought your favorite book was Jurassic Park.
It's a real tie.
Okay.
Gotta say. Yeah, they're really neck and neck. It depends on the time of year, I think. Anyway, I read it
This
all
is
the
more
time.
of a fall read, and that one's
Yeah.
more of a summer read.
You know what? Yes. And then I have such a strong memory associated of getting this book for the first time. I only got it to begin with because the movie was coming out and I wanted to read the book first. And I remember so distinctly going into the Borders in the mall.
Loved Borders.
And everything was on hella sale because Borders as an institution wasn't going out of business yet, but this particular store was. And I was really disappointed because everything was on sale and everything was already sold out. The only copy that I could get of the book had the movie tie-in cover, and I hate buying books with the movie tie-in cover because especially then I was such a little bougie bitch. But it was the only copy, so I bought it anyway, and I remember feeling really fancy. Yeah.
That's actually so funny because earlier today I was digging through my closet looking for all of my Renaissance art books. Found them. But while I was digging, I found a copy of Chocolat, which I actually didn't know that I had a copy of, and I've never read it, and I really want to. But I was slightly disappointed because it's a copy that has the movie cover.
No!
And I was a little bit like, oh, it's like the movie.
That's a real thing.
Yeah.
I am excited for you to read that because it is delightful. And I think
I
you're
will
gonna
say,
really
though,
enjoy it.
I am not disappointed that my copy of Streetcar Named Desire has a shirtless Marlon Brando on the cover of
That's
it.
fair. That one's allowed. Yeah.
I will say I almost, when I bought that, I remember buying that book in Barnes & Noble and being like, I feel like I should really stay true to the original play cover and not buy that one. And I remember my mother being like, honey, you want the shirtless Marlon Brando one.
To the credit of her publishers, the rest of Lauren Weisberger's novels, I think like most of them, not all of them, but a lot of them ended up doing a similar book cover to The Devil Wears Prada with like a high-heeled shoe on the cover with something along the heel that like indicated a theme. So like Chasing Harry Winston, there's like a white heel with an engagement ring on it because it's about like one of the characters gets married. You know, there's
I like that. That's
yeah,
fun.
and so that is a theme that continues through the rest of her book covers. So like I don't hate it as much.
Yeah,
But
that's kind of cool that they did that. I like that it carries through.
and because of course I've read literally all of her other novels. I'm a big fan. Anyway, and I felt really fancy when I started this one because it was the first book I ever read that had an epigraph at the beginning. And I thought that was really cool. It is an epigraph from Thoreau's Walden,
Well, that's unexpected.
which states, "Beware of all enterprises that require new clothes."
Okay, I hear that he had his mother doing his laundry, so I don't...
Yeah.
I don't know that he should talk, but whatever.
Right. Anyway, so I really had low hopes for the movie the first time I watched it, and I didn't really love it my first watch through, so I was excited to see it again. I'm sorry to report I am still a bougie, the book was better bitch. I enjoyed watching this movie, being able to focus on, like, you know, podcast stuff and Anne Hathaway specifically, but I'm still like, the book was better. One of the things, I think, so we were talking about age. I do think there's a lot of things that are really clear in this movie that just show, like, how young Andy, like, how naive she acts, because she really is, like, 22, just out of college, first job sort of thing. But I do feel like that is so much more present in the book. There's so many things I feel like in the movie that are adjusted that make her seem like she should be older and should know better. And so I think that's one of the problems I have, is there's like a disconnect with me for the characters. Like, she's making these poor decisions that I don't think she should be, because it seems to me like the character in the movie is a little bit older and wiser, even though she isn't. So that's my problem with the character. But what I love about watching this movie as an adult and reading the book every time I read it as an adult is, like, I remember the time that I read it when I was like 22, 23, and I suddenly understood everything she was going through. And I was like, oh my God, I get this. The world is awful. And then, yeah, the same with the movie and, like, the terrible workplace. We were talking about terrible workplaces, you know, earlier today. And a lot about, like, you know, how much of yourself is worth selling to your job, basically, for the opportunities that are possible versus, like, the kind of life you want to live. It's really interesting. Some people will talk about, I will say, critics, as I said, don't really talk about age a lot, but a lot of critics who talk about her boyfriend and her friends have some interesting thoughts about how the other people around Andy handle these changes that she's going through, which is pretty interesting. We can go over some
I'm
of
not
those
a
if you're
fan.
curious. Do you want to talk about some of your thoughts?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll save talking too much about the boyfriend, because I know we were going to interview my father, Chef Mark, who is also a chef, about his thoughts on the boyfriend. But I just generally find, I struggle a lot with the very cliche premise of the woman who works too hard and then the people around her who give her shit for that, because clearly her priorities are in the wrong place, especially in this movie, because her whole thing is like, well, if I just put in a year here, then I can have whatever job I want. And I don't I think it really sucks that she's shamed for being ambitious and for trying to make her dreams happen. And I find that, I mean, there are some moments where it's like, I see where her friends are coming from for sure, but I just generally find it a little bit like the friends and the boyfriend kind of like put her down instead of being like, okay, we got you. We'll be your cheerleader for like 1 year. I mean, some of their behavior would make more sense if it was more than a year and it was kind of like, Andy, come on. You said you were going to do this for a year and then level up to something else and you're not. But
Yeah.
I also have to say, do they really think she's going to work less when she gets whatever ideal writer job she wants to have?
Exactly. So a lot of, and your chef Mark will have, I think, some more interesting things to say about it, but a lot of critics are like, I'm sorry, her boyfriend is a New York chef. Isn't that, who is it? Let's see, Francesca Giangulio?
I don't know. How do you spell it?
Gianguilio.
It's the second part is G-U. There's no other I.
Yeah, Gui.
G-U-I.
Yeah, Lio.
John Guglio.
John Guglio. Okay, that's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah.
The little bit of Italian in me was like, I'm pretty sure this is right. Francesca Giangulio wrote, Nate's also constantly telling Andy to quit, even though she's starting to like what she does and knows it's a good step for her career. I mean, he's a chef. Is that not also a fast-paced, demanding job with an inconsistent schedule, often forcing you to work nights and weekends? She wrote that for Salon.com. And a lot of people have the same thoughts. Like, what? Like, there's one part where...
Yeah, that's a real plot hole in this movie.
Yes, there's even the part, the day after she gets her makeover, you see her standing outside of his restaurant waiting for him. So the assumption presumably is that they got off work at the same time, which would be very late. So, like, why is it a problem? Eleanor Ringel Gillespie from the Cox Service News talks more generally about, like, Andy's family and friends and boyfriend, talking about how, like, the movie really steers us away from those characters quite a lot. So, like, the only time we really see her interact with those characters, or not the only time, but most of the time we see her interact with those characters, it's only to see people, like, them complaining. Whereas, again, in the book, because it's just so much more room to explore these things, we see more stuff go on with her and the characters, and we see more ways that their relationships change just because I think as characters, they are all getting older and starting their own lives. So, like, Lily is actually a graduate student in the book. I think her boyfriend's name is Alex in the book and not Nate, weirdly enough. He's a teacher. And so, like, they're all just going down very different paths that you do when you get out of college. And, like, their careers are going different ways and they're just becoming different people and growing apart. And so it makes more sense because we get to see that growth. Whereas in the movie, they're really just used as a vehicle to shame her, like we talked.
See, and that trajectory feels more genuine to me and real. And the way that they went in the movie feels very Hollywood trope.
Yeah. Oh, Francesca Giangulio also has a good moment about talking about how Nate is, like, really emotionally unintelligent. She writes, quote, "He has the emotional intelligence of a baby carrot and not in a hot, I can fix him way, like Jeremy Allen White in The Bear." This is a more recent article.
Yeah. I think it's really funny. I can't remember who I was talking to, but I was complaining about Nate to somebody who then said, well, that's why he's not in the sequel. On the topic of chefs in New York City,
There you go.
we have brought in our culinary correspondent to comment on the reality of the chef role in this film. So we have Chef Mark, my dad.
Hi.
What's your culinary experience?
Let's see. I went to the French Culinary Institute in New York City.
Not in France.
Not in France, no.
Oh, but is this leading?
And I graduated on top of my class. And then I worked in many restaurants in the city. Well, not as many in the city, but more in the Princeton, New Jersey area. And I was an executive chef for the past 20 years. I'm retired now. I have a New York Times star.
Oh, I didn't know that. Wow.
and
For your own restaurant.
for my own restaurant.
His
yeah.
own restaurant got reviewed in the New York Times.
Yeah.
Yes, right before they decided to stop giving stars to New Jersey restaurants.
But that's
I
great
think
that you're
I
like
put
in
an
the
end-
last round.
I want that to. We're not doing this anymore.
Yeah.
And yes, I have since retired, and I have plenty of opinions on grilled cheese. So, what do you want to know?
Yes.
We were talking yesterday about toxic work environments,
Mhm.
very ambitious work environments, and creative work environments. And we were both saying that, and you found reviews, right? I'm remembering correctly that we found reviews that also were like, why is the chef mad that
Yes.
she's home so late?
Yeah. So, the woman whose name I needed help pronouncing, Francesca Giangulio,
Yes.
says Nate, the boyfriend, is also constantly telling Andy to quit, even though she's starting to like what she does and know it's a good step for her career. But I mean, he's a chef. Is that not also a fast-paced, demanding job with an inconsistent schedule, often forcing you to work nights and weekends?
So I guess, can you answer her question?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Okay, I think, and then this is just a theory because we're just talking about a movie here, but
Mhm.
I think the restaurant might have been in trouble if he's getting out earlier than her.
You're right. Wanted to tell me you said that.
Because
Yeah.
I don't know of any New York City restaurants where if they're very successful, and he seemed to be working at a higher level. He has a line about reducing port wine and things like that. And
Wait, what does reducing port wine
you
mean?
take a bottle of port wine, and you reduce it down to a cup.
So that means
So-
he's doing fancy stuff?
Yeah, well, yeah, that was a very in thing in the 90s, and I mean, people still do it. It's very.
It takes a long time. Like it's a
It takes a long time, and it's
process.
expensive because if you use good port, the better port you use, the better the reduction is. What you're doing is you're just reducing it down and intensifying its flavors. So he's working at a high-end restaurant, but he's home before she is. And I don't know anything about the fashion industry, but I can't believe anybody works later than chefs in New York City. His
Okay.
last tables would be around 11 o'clock, and then there's the cleanup.
Yeah.
So
So it's
He would
unlikely.
he wouldn't get out of there until 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
So they should be the perfect couple.
Yes, they should be. Yeah. They should be right there, ready to have that late night drink together.
With a grilled cheese.
With
With
grilled
a grilled
cheese.
cheese.
Yeah,
Speaking
So-
of grilled cheese.
Speaking of grilled cheese, this is like a hilarious, iconic bit that people gripe on from this movie and have continued to gripe on for the last 20 years. So yeah, at one point in the movie, Andy finally comes home, they're complaining, he makes her a grilled cheese, she decides she doesn't want to eat it, and Nate is very concerned that she's gonna throw it away, and he says, no, there's like $8 worth of Jarlsberg in here. And
Yeah.
so
Carlsberger was a Gruyere.
he said Jarlsberg.
We say Jarlsberg, which is one of my favorite cheeses. So
Would you do it in a grilled
It's a type of
cheese?
Swiss.
it's a type of Swiss. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a much richer flavor.
Yeah, so it would be nice and melty. I can see that working. The complaints people have about the grilled cheese is that one, it's a lot more crispy than most people would prefer. It's like very, very burnt.
I
And
will
then-
say I love a burnt grilled cheese.
I do love a crispy grilled cheese. I did think upon watching through it, I remember noting, I was like, okay, that's not as burned as I remember it.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm like, maybe they've color graded some of the movie in times past to adjust
that
for the
is
burning, because I
possible.
remember it being a lot more burnt than that.
Well, I don't remember whether it was burnt or not, but you want your grilled cheese to be crispy.
Yeah.
Grilled.
It's grilled and with lots of butter, and that's what makes it yummy. And so
What a lot of other people have
I don't
concerns
see what
about
the problem is with that.
is right. But what a lot of other people have concerns about is that there's $8 worth of cheese in there.
Well, that's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean,
Maybe not with inflation today.
well, maybe today.
Okay, so I found an article on Medium by Alicia Galarza. I kept thinking it was Alicia Garza, and I had to look it up, and I got mixed up. So she wrote a whole article during the right at the beginning of lockdown about this sandwich. She was going stir crazy and had cabin fever, and she was like, let me just rant for 1,000 words about this sandwich. And she did research, and she broke down the cost of things and found out that in $2020, that if Nate made a sandwich with $8 worth of Jarlsberg, it would be something like half a pound of cheese in a single sandwich. Yeah. And that's in $2020, not in $2006. That could have been potentially even more cheese.
Well, chefs have been known to exaggerate.
So you're saying it probably wasn't $8 worth of cheese?
No, I think he was trying to drive home a point, and he was disappointed that if the woman you love is not going to eat your food, you have a problem.
He seems to have a lot of problems. He's about to lose his job, and he can't even get his girlfriend to eat his grilled cheese.
Well, I rest my case.
Well, what would you make a grilled cheese with? What's your ideal bread and your ideal cheese recommendation?
Oh, well, I mean, I'm a big fan of rye. So I
both. I went to a diner for breakfast the other day, Laura, and I was like, well, maybe I should get rye toast. And then I was like, no, I'm not Laura. I'm not going to do that. She always gets rye toast at the diner. It's so funny.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, when you have a freshly baked, real nice loaf of rye, I think that's fantastic. Though, I mean, when you add lots of butter to a hot pan and crisp up bread, you really can't go wrong. It's kind of
that's fair.
It's this works.
Could you go wrong though if you used Wonder Bread?
Yeah, as a child, I ate a lot of Wonder Bread and sandwiches, and I loved them.
Okay,
but I wouldn't use it nowadays because my taste buds have developed. But it still works. Mm-hmm. So what would I make her?
No, your cheese.
Your grilled
cheese choice.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can use a lot of cheeses. I mean, classic American cheese is a classic cheese, grilled cheese.
According to social media, millennials killed American cheese.
Yeah.
Is there anything we didn't kill? Cheese.
Yeah.
Apparently not. Millennials and women have ruined everything.
But I've had, wonderful, brie.
Oh.
That's really good. And if if you want to spice it up a little bit and you shave some jalapeno pepper into it, that kind of gives it a real kick. And you get the crispy bread, you get a little heat from the jalapeno, you get that nice, creamy texture from the brie. It's a nice sandwich.
That sounds incredible.
Yeah. So, I was disappointed she wouldn't eat his grilled cheese too.
That's fair.
As a chef, I felt bad for him.
All right, did we cover grilled cheese?
We covered it, yes.
Okay.
Well, whenever you need food questions, please call on me.
Absolutely. This was great.
All right. Oh, it's Chef Mark, our culinary correspondent, reporting from New Jersey.
And I didn't end up actually copying it, and I'm so mad, but the actor who plays him, Adrian Gainier, Gainier? I'm so sorry with names today. He even says some stuff where he's like, yeah, he couldn't handle the fact that she was becoming successful and that he was still where he was, and he lashed out, and that's how he became what he was. And that, I think, is interesting that he brings that up, because that to me mirrors Miranda's storyline with her husband, because that's exactly what's happening there. Because the only interaction we see with them is he's like, I was stuck waiting at the restaurant for hours, and what are people going to say about that? He's very obsessed with people thinking he's one of the Mr. Priestleys, which is how she refers to them later on, as she knows, the news is going to talk about, another Mr. Priestley.
Right. Because it's not like he's like, oh, that hurt my feelings because clearly you don't care about my time. It's very I care about what people think as a man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's a lot about these insecure men who cannot handle the cool women. Because Lily, her friend, really only starts to have a problem with her when she thinks that when she sees her flirting. Lily catches Andy flirting with the writer guy, and that's really
and I
the
will
first
say,
time Lily has a problem with her and her work.
Yeah, and I do feel for Lily in that moment, because I'm like, I get what she thinks that she saw, and that freaks her out.
Absolutely.
And that's understandable. And Andy does end up acting on some of those impulses, so we know that Lily was not her instincts were not far off in that moment.
Exactly. Yeah. And then the only other person that kind of talks to her about her job being an issue is her father.
Yes. And her father is very annoyed that she spends the whole dinner on the phone.
Which, like, understandably, I would be too. But, like, his first problem with the conversation is, like, why didn't she go to law school? I don't even know where that came from, because I don't think she applies to law school in the book, but whatever.
Yeah. I don't know.
I also, because you have, such a dedication to the clothing and fashion arts, Laura. There were some folks
I don't know about fashion, but sure.
Well, some people had some interesting things to say about, like, the fashion in the movie and, like, fashion industry. What do you have? What are you thinking about? Like, we talked about sort of the early 2000s fashion, but what kind of? I'm interested to see what kind of thoughts you have about, like, the sort of peek behind the veil at what is presumably the fashion industry and what that looks like and what the people in it look like.
So I really don't know that much about the fashion industry, but I do know people who have worked in Vogue level magazines, whether or not that's for fashion. And I do think this is pretty much what it's like. Yeah, I don't think the movie is that exaggerated.
So, yeah, well, as we, presumably the novel is based on Weisberger's own experiences working there. There was a really interesting article by Gina Belafonte of the New York Times. She was a fashion reporter and critic from 1999 to 2004. So she was, like, very recently a critic in that world and in that industry before the movie came out. And she writes, quote, "The Devil Wears Prada, which opens June 30th, is based on the best-selling novel of the same name written by Lauren Weisberger, who worked as an assistant at Vogue and mined the experience to depict fashion magazines as cauldrons of Peronist management style and self-enchantment." For anybody else who is Googling it, Peronist refers to the authoritarian regime of Juan Perón. I had to look that up.
I was going to say, what a word. That's actually quite a phrase altogether. Yes. Yeah.
She appreciates that, like, the movie doesn't just, like, depict everybody in the fashion industry as, like, a bunch of airheads. Like you said, like, you had suggested, like, it's probably pretty accurate. She's like, yes, this is a really honest portrayal of fashion culture and fashion industry since Unzipped, which was a 1995 documentary about Isaac Mizrahi. And then she has some really interesting things to say about, like, the particular people in the fashion industry that the movie, like, highlights. So she talks a lot about how Nigel has that speech about how, like, Runway, like, found these great artists like Oscar de la Renta, and, like, they're publishing, like, artists of the time. And Nigel
I wonder how those artists would feel about that, actually, but okay.
So, Nigel is really passionate about, presumably, like, the art of it all. Whereas other characters like Emily or even like Miranda we see in some moments, she talks about them being, quote, revealing them instead as the exacting functionaries they are, those who live and dress and think according to the seasonal edicts of global conglomerates. The filmmakers understand that fashion people don't possess artistic souls, but actuarial ones, that they are energized more by fear than desire. And she gives an example of, like, the fashion editor might not want the, like, pumps of the hour, but gets them anyway because she's terrified of being left behind. And about how select people who are, like, pulling the gears and pulleys of the fashion industry, or of, like, the publishing side of it, are less into the fashion and the creation and more into, like, the trends of it all.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's part of what is the anxiety-inducing element of this movie, is there is this sense of you'll never really keep up. And I mean, I feel like you and I talk about this a lot, because really, in the arts, especially, like if you are a creative person, there is kind of always this sense of you'll never keep up. And maybe, I mean, maybe that's true of many industries, but I feel like the conclusion that I've come to is like, then don't try. Like, do something, think for yourself. And I think what's really interesting about this movie too is like a scene that I think sums up everything that I'm talking about and that you were just reading about, and that I would argue is the most iconic scene of this movie, is when Andy gets called out for her cerulean blue sweater. And while Miranda is putting together what is actually kind of a hideous outfit, and giving like a long speech about how Andy thinks that she had freedom of choice in choosing that frumpy sweater, but really that sweater was chosen for her. And she kind of does this whole history of cerulean.
She says something like, that's when actuality, you think you're above all of this, when actuality, that sweater was chosen for you by the people in this room from a pile of stuff. Because Andy says she doesn't know about this stuff.
Right, and why I think that scene is so brilliant is, on the one hand, what Miranda is saying is chilling, but has some truth to it. Mm-hmm. And on the other hand, and I would also say, and she is right, that Andy is deigning to be in that room with these people again, instead of acknowledging the real power that they do hold. And then on the other hand, she's also putting together a comically ridiculous outfit. And her speech is just so satirically egotistical. And so there's this, I think the movie captures this really brilliant tension between the ridiculousness of it all, but also the reality of the power that it has, and that for some people, they are genuinely passionate about it, but they're also genuinely passionate about something that is grossly capitalistic at the end of the day.
I think another great example of that is in a meeting, like in an actual boardroom meeting later on, is the iconic moment of florals for spring.
How
groundbreaking. Because like Miranda is like, you know, also saying like, yes, I'm aware that people do florals in spring. We can do better than that.
Wait, can we also talk about how Miranda made one of the best puns ever by calling florals groundbreaking?
Oh God, get the fuck out of here. The other moment I like to talk about in that sort of like cerulean moment is when I like to talk about, I just wanted to bring it up because I didn't really think about it until this last time I watched it through. But the assistant, like the fashion, you know, editor or whatever, holds up the two belts. And this is what sends Andy off, is she holds up these two turquoise belts and they each have a very different belt buckle. And she says, like, these are our options. It's so tough. They're so different. And Andy kind of chortles. And Miranda's like, what are you talking about? And Andy's like, those belts look exactly the same. And I have so many feelings about this moment because I'm like, on the one hand, I do think that assistant is being a little dramatic, saying they're so different. But they are different. And the belt makes them both very different styles. But, like, I feel like she can tone down the drama a bit. But I do understand that, like, the choice, she's saying, what I think she means to say is that, like, the choice is difficult because they are so similar with the exception of this one detail. And then Andy also, as a fucking writer and journalist, and, like, she was an English major at Northwestern, and there's a part in the book where she talks about, like, how she spent years diagramming sentences. And I'm like, as a person with this much, like, analytic education, you should be able to look at those and go like, yeah, I can see how that might be a tough decision. Like, it's just another example of the she deigns to work here kind of thing. But I just had a lot of thoughts on those belts. Anyway, but I agree the outfit is awful. I don't even remember what belt she picks, but whichever one, it's terrible.
It doesn't matter. Yeah. I mean, and I think too, I like that moment as well. I think that's part of the brilliance of the scene, because I also completely agree. Like, it is on the one hand really funny because the belts do look the same. On the other hand, especially as somebody who cares a lot about visuals, I am like, okay, but as much as I'm laughing at this, I'm also laughing at this knowing that I would totally sit here being like, each of these belts would completely change the
yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't wear either of them, but that's another story.
Another interesting look somebody had about, like, fashion, Carolee Miller from the Star Telegram actually interviewed Patricia Field, who was the costume designer for the movie, and again, also was the costume designer on Sex and the City. Apparently she was the one behind the Carrie necklace. So, you know, that's a vibe.
Okay. This is like a very embarrassing fact about myself that I'm going to tell you and you alone, Belle.
Me and me, like, we're cutting this out. Is that what you're saying?
No, I mean, like, and all of our listeners also get to hear.
Okay.
I definitely, Nat gave me, when he was little, he gave me a Laura necklace that looks like the Carrie necklace. I don't think he knew that it looked like the Carrie necklace, but I know. And I will admit, I actually still really like that necklace. And there is a part of me that is a little bit like, it's like my Carrie necklace.
No, that's such a thing. And I don't know if this is on topic with what we're talking about with the movie as well, but I think just more information about how, like, the media infiltrates us as young people, as we've been, which I feel like is our theme this season. Like, we grow up with these movies. Elle Woods in Legally Blonde wears the little chain heart Tiffany necklace.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And
I had one of those bracelets. I think it was a knockoff,
Girl,
but
I had
one.
knockoffs, of course. And they made them at Claire's, and they had a little rhinestone in the corner. That's how you knew it was a knockoff. I had the necklace, I had the matching bracelet, and I had little silver heart earrings that also had a rhinestone in the middle. So I had, like, a whole thing.
I love it.
And I was obsessed because I wanted to look like Elle Woods. So I understand the Carrie necklace thing. That's such a vibe.
Yeah.
So the creator of the Carrie necklace, Patricia Field, was talking to this writer, talking about, like, the visions for fashion for the characters specifically. She said, quote, "There were two different visions. Miranda is the queen of fashion. Andy is the ordinary girl who transforms into fashion, a brand name image."
That's interesting. Well, I mean, the implication is that she's not herself anymore once she makes that transition, that she's sold out and sold her soul to the Devil in Prada. So I think that's interesting. You know, I was also thinking, this is a slight left, but kind of related. But I was also thinking too, because at the end, she still has the same hair. She's definitely still more conscientious about how what she wears does say something about her, but she's in the leather jacket. I think she's wearing a black turtleneck. She's wearing pants.
She's wearing jeans
It's more,
and boots.
Yes. And she goes to this more classic newsroom type space for her interview with this male editor. And I was wondering if you had thoughts about the gender and sexuality coding of the spaces in this film, because I think it's really easy to make fun of Runway, but like that whole, I think the big turning point where we start, and this is again, I think where the movie is brilliant and where I think her friends are kind of frustrating because they're a little bit flat, but like the workplace is so dynamic where we're a little bit laughing at it and we're a little bit like, oh, okay, there's something more serious here. But there is that speech that Nigel gives Andy about, you know, growing up as, you know, a young boy who liked fashion, and he eventually realizes he's gay, and, you know, and feeling
for the record, there is not necessarily any confirmation that the character of Nigel in the film is queer. Unfortunately.
Okay, it's heavily
queer-coded and implied, but
Yes.
it was 2006, and that was just not a thing that you did in movies in 2006. We can only hope that is rectified in the sequel.
Yeah.
Give Nigel a boyfriend.
Yeah.
Okay.
Give
Or a
Nigel
husband.
a boyfriend.
It's been 20
Yes.
years. Goddamn. Okay.
He deserves it anyway. So, you know, that is kind of a sobering moment, I would say, for Andy, where she kind of sees how Runway actually, for as much as it's a toxic work environment for her, it's created a safe space for other people. Though whether or not that's a real safe space or the illusion of a safe space is a whole other conversation. But I was interested if you had thoughts about how, you know, Runway is kind of portrayed as this very toxic environment. It's also portrayed as this very female and gay man coded space. And when Andy goes to the New York Mirror at the end, I would argue it's very masculine coded, that space. And it's presented as the masculine coded space is better, even though I gotta be honest, I'm sure it's all the same.
Yeah. So yeah, that's interesting. I agree. I think especially like the looks that she wears, I think are definitely coded as differently in those moments. Cause like if she had showed up to that new interview at the end of the movie in a runway outfit, I think it would have been really out of place, and I think she recognizes that.
Which also speaks to the fact that she's realizing that it's, in some ways, she's manipulating fashion to show people what they want to see.
Yeah.
She's still not actually asking who she really wants to be. I mean, presumably at the end, she's dressing the part that she does genuinely want to have, but it is still, it's
I will say
artful.
Something that
it's affected.
Yes.
Affected? What? How do you say that? You know what I'm talking about when you...
affected.
Affected.
She creates an affect, yes.
Affected.
Yeah. I think, again, I'm going to bring so many of these, like, well, in the book. I think in the book, an interesting we get so much more, like, a whole chapter before, like, the first chapter, like, ends in her interview. And so we get so much of, like, not just the morning of, but, like, the days leading up. And there is, like, a real crisis of confidence that when she has to put together an outfit for an interview, because not only, like, she's, like, just finished college. She doesn't really have a home base. She spends most of the time at her parents', but she also stays at, like, her boyfriend's apartment. Sometimes she stays at Lily's apartment. Her clothes are just kind of floating around everywhere. And she has a real moment of, like, I'm going to a big girl job interview. I need to wear something. And then a secondary moment of, I'm going to a big girl job interview at a fashion magazine. What? And she talks about, like, putting together an outfit that she's like, I assembled something resembling a suit with, like, totally mismatched jeans, like, not jeans, pants and a blazer. And she, even in that moment, is like, so, like, the Andy we see at the beginning of the movie is also not, like, who she really is, because she also understands, like, I gotta do something that makes me look semi-okay. I don't know. It's strange. So, yeah, I think we never really see Andy's real look or style throughout the film. Maybe in the sequel we'll get more of who she really is. And then when it comes to just, like, the physicality of the workplaces, yeah, I think they're absolutely gendered. We don't get to see anything else in the Elias Clark building except for the runway floor and, like, the cafeteria. So I'm really curious to see, like, what those other publications spaces would have looked like compared to Runway, if anything, like, if they're different at all. But yeah, like, it's very big and open. Things are, like, well lit. And then when you get to the New York Mirror, it's, like, quite dark. There's very few windows. There's piles of paper everywhere. And I'm like, surely you guys own filing cabinets? Like, I think as much as it probably is annoying to be the assistant that has to wait for the book, the mock-up of the current issue, they're very streamlined. They have one thing, and it's the book, and it goes to Miranda's house, and then it comes back in the morning. Like, they get their shit done, and it looks good, but their office doesn't look like a mess while they're trying to do it, which, again, feels like a very feminine thing. I don't know.
Okay. This actually...
Ooh, tell me.
Yeah, so you...
Also, you brought up Stanley Tucci, and I have some interesting thoughts about him, too, if you want to talk about that in a minute.
Yeah, I do want to talk about that. I also just want to talk more about, like, what you think about workplace values and how that's shifted over time. Because I definitely had an interesting conversation recently about deciding that I would never want to work somewhere where I couldn't say no. And if I'm going to get fired for saying no, then I would rather be unemployed looking for another job than work somewhere where I couldn't say no. And I think that is something that only with our generation that people have felt like they could actually do.
I remember talking to my mom. So I think I probably said on the podcast before, like, when I first finished grad school, we graduated in 2020. It was a mess. I ended up teaching public school, which is a thing that a lot of people with English degrees end up doing at some point, because it is just, like, a thing that, like, when schools get down to the wire and they need a warm body in a classroom, we are very technically qualified to teach ELA with, it's called a TTA, a TAT, a temporary authorization to teach. You're only allowed to do it for, like, 1 to 3 years, depending on the state, and then you actually have to get a teaching license before you can continue. Anyway, I got stuck in that. I did that for 7 months, and I remember telling my mom towards the end of it that I was like, if I don't do it before the end of the year, when the year is done, I'm putting in my notice that I'm not coming back next year, and I will go work at the Walmart. which is almost what I did. I went to work at Starbucks, but still.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, I will take a massive pay cut and I will do something that is, not in line with my, like, field of education, because I want to work and pay my bills. And I would rather make coffee.
Yeah.
So, like, that's a real thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, again, I
Absolutely.
should mention, teaching in a lot of places is a space where you are made to feel guilty about saying no to opportunities. And they
Yes.
call them opportunities, they're extra job. It's called job creep. Lots of people
Yeah.
have lots of good articles about it. If you are on TikTok, you should look up Millennial Miss Frizzle. She used to be a teacher, and now she works in corporate offices at Costco. She's got a really cool story, and she has getting a PhD in, like, education and leadership, and she has lots of really cool things to say about that sort of teacher guilt that makes you stay longer than you otherwise would.
I would argue that that's probably real in a lot of arts and humanities
Yes.
environments.
Yes, there's a lot. Arts and humanity, arts very much, because there's this, like, well, we're doing it for the art of it. We're doing it for, it's the principle of the matter. Like, know your why. That's a big thing in teaching. And it makes me gag every time I think about it. But it's like, you should do this for less, or you should do more of this and put up with the tough work and the difficult people, because it's for the art. We're not here
Yeah,
for the
that's
money.
definitely true in the arts
Yes.
too. Yeah, yeah. And there's a lot of
Oh, no, I was
push,
talking
too,
about
for-
arts in that moment. Sorry. Yes.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
No, the
yes.
teaching, the way that translates into teaching is your principles are like, always remember your why, or we're in it for the outcome, not the income.
Ugh,
Yeah.
gross.
Anyway,
You
you look like you're looking up something.
I am, because I was something that you said made me wonder, like, where the offices are
Oh,
in the movie. And it's interesting
that's
because
a thing that I
this-
should be able to just pull out of my head
Well,
from the book.
I'm on this, like, worldwide movie locations website that claims it was at the McGraw-Hill building.
Oh, that's interesting. They filmed it in, like, another publisher's building. That's funny.
Right, because McGraw-Hill does educational publishing,
Yeah, they do
I think.
textbooks.
I don't know if McGraw-Hill is actually still in that building, because the building's very old.
Right.
But it is called the McGraw-Hill building. But it's interesting because I was
At
like,
some
I know
point in
that
its
name.
life, it was a publishing house.
Yeah, and I was like, I know that name. I was like, isn't that the place that had a really historic lobby that they gutted? And it is. It's an Art Deco building, and they had this gorgeous blue and gold and green lobby that is just, like, outrageous and luxurious in Art Deco, and they demolished the entire thing even while preservationists were working to save it. But it's weird because when you look up the McGraw-Hill building, the way it looks doesn't look like it does in the movie. So I'm not sure
I wonder
how
if they
accurate
filmed
that
a different
was.
exterior,
Maybe.
or like they computer
Maybe they
generated
used
it,
the
because
interior?
on the exterior it does say Elias Clark, and so I wonder if maybe the
Mm-hmm.
exterior was computer generated, or a different building, and the interior ends up being what was used.
Oh, well, I just think it's interesting that, it's also a place that had this very artistic architecture that was then destroyed by corporate capitalism. So if it is in fact the same building, but just an interesting tidbit.
Shoot, what were we talking about?
We're talking about workplace.
Oh, workplaces. I think even as they changed the boyfriend's job from the book to the film, like, everybody in her circle has really stressful jobs.
Yes.
Or daily lives. So, like, in the film, he's a chef. Lily is a gallerist. In the book, she's a grad student in Russian literature.
I know. I think it's really funny that they're giving Andy so much shit.
Everybody around her has these really stressful work environments, like, just by the nature of the industry that they're
Yeah, so
in.
I am surprised that people writing about this movie didn't pick up on that's not. I mean, I guess they did with the chef, but, like, yeah, all of the friends have stressful jobs.
It would be interesting to have some folks who were in the generation before us. Like,
Yeah.
it would be really interesting to have some Gen X people chime in on this, because that would have been the time where they were coming into their careers. And, like, we like we said, we have a really different outlook on, like, I would, like you said, I would never work at a job where I feel like I can't say no. And I don't think that's something I would have thought of in my first jobs. Right. It's not something I thought of in my first job right after school.
I think, too, the other thing is it's just, like, it's interesting because this would have been, like, the year before we started high school. So we would have just been starting about really seriously imagining what our careers might be and what kind of further training we need beyond high school in order to achieve those careers. And it is really interesting to me how much in even, like, 10 years this has changed. And I think, too, like, even the premise of the movie, that's like, if I do this, then I will get that. I mean, I think even, like, with my first job out of college, I found myself in a scenario where somebody basically presented, if you do this shit work, then you will get this, what was frankly still kind of shit work, but a step up somehow. And I already at that age was like, that's BS. And chances are you're not actually going to get, like, unless somebody is giving you a real offer right now, it's probably not going to happen. And I would say that all of the experiences I have had since then, I would say only have solidified that belief for me. So, and I think that there's just like, and I would say generationally that's true, that most people our age would be like, yeah, don't buy into that. That's not worth it.
We say that now in our 30s. I don't know that that's something we would have felt like we could say when we were 22.
Well, but I'm saying that, you know, I kind of had one of those in my first job outside of college, though. I had that experience of somebody being like, well, if you put up with this crap, we'll give you something better. And even in that moment, I knew enough to say no because I saw through it.
This reminds me of, and I think I brought this up in a totally unrelated conversation you and I were just having, like, about shitty work stuff in general, where I'm reminded of a quote from Weekend at Bernie's where Andrew McCarthy's character says, you know, my dad worked hard and all they gave him was more work.
Yeah. Well, and I think that is also very much like the reason why things have changed with the millennial generation is I think a lot of us look at past generations and go, well, you keep saying, like, work hard and that will pay off. And we're all kind of like,
yeah. And, well, a lot of, really the only critics or the only reviews that I was finding that really were talking about, like, the workplace were pretty much like putting the blame solely on the fashion industry as a workplace and not just, like, stressful workplaces in general. Like, exactly, like, you know, they didn't say this in the reviews, but what we can see in the movie is, like, the chef gets a pass because it's a real job or whatever. I mean, it is a real job, but so is Andy's. And that's not what her friends seem to think.
I would also say that I think this movie had to come out in 2006 because if it was even 2 years later, I think it wouldn't have worked. Because 2 years later, the housing market bubble burst and the economy collapsed and a lot of people were out of work. And I think that I think that that's the other thing is that this movie happens at this moment where Andy really believes if she works here for a year, she'll be able to get any job that she wants. And she also really believes that if she just leaves this job without any other game plan, that she'll find another one.
But there's even this moment at the beginning of the movie where she and her friends are all out to dinner and they toast to jobs that pay the rent, and they just leave it at that. And then
because the gallerist and writer really pay the rent.
And, well, no, because she's working at Runway, I guess, and she's not being a writer. But, like, everyone seems so on board at the beginning. And then when she starts to take her job seriously and actually excel at it, not just as, like, the assistant part, but just, like, learning about the industry and how it works and how to succeed in it, they can't stand her.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
Should we talk at all about body image in this movie? Well, and I feel like body image and age
because there's some interesting
go
things
together.
about the new film about that. You start us off. Nobody really talks about it, except for a few people who highlight the moment where Miranda says, "Sure, take a chance on the smart fat girl."
Yeah, that I hate. I also I love the whole idea that Anne Hathaway needs to get skinnier and that she goes from a 6 to a 4.
So,
we celebrate that at one point.
I don't actually know what her size is in the book. I don't think they talk about it. But what is interesting, again, in the book compared to the film is that she is doing her interview right after coming off of like 6 months just like bumming living abroad with her boyfriend, and they only come home because she gets some kind of, she describes it as dysentery. She gets some kind of awful food poisoning, and she loses a ton of weight, and she shows up in the offices and she's basically emaciated because she's like 5'10" and almost...
That is a really funny premise, I think.
Yeah, I think it's hilarious, but she shows up and she's 5'10" and like 105 pounds. And so she very much fits the visual look that the magazine wants. And that's like 90% of why she gets in the door to begin with. And that's not really something that's talked about in the movie. They just call her fat because she's a size 6. Yeah.
I think that would have been funnier. I'm kind of tired of... I mean, this is like the same era as like Bridget Jones's Diary where it's like, I'm 136 pounds and so fat. And it's like, girl, 136 pounds is little, but whatever. And I don't know. I mean, it's hard watching this stuff now because it doesn't age well, where you're kind of looking back and being like, oh, no wonder why like everybody our age has body image issues, because we were raised to think 136 pounds and size 6 is fat.
So speaking of not aging well... a lot of outlets are reporting quotes that have been coming out about Anne Hathaway speaking to the director, to David, about this movie, that she didn't want to see any models that were stick thin for the sequel. I don't know how that's going to look or how that's going to play out, because I don't know what the industry is going to look like and how you're going to find people who aren't stick thin but who are models. And the term plus size model is laughable even today. I don't know if anybody's been watching the Tyra documentaries. The America's Next Top Model documentaries on Netflix, but they have so many like former quote unquote plus size models speaking out,
who are still really skinny,
speaking out about that sort of stuff. So
I also love how the option is you're either a model or you're a plus size model, and that basically means you're either really, really skinny or you're normal. Or you're really, really skinny, or it is actually like a larger model, but it's always like, you know, it's the idea of categorizing women. That's it. That's the fundamental problem here. The idea of categorizing women.
So I don't know how that's going to look or actually play out in the new film, but reportedly that is a discussion that's been had.
I saw an old interview a long time ago with a model who used to just be like a regular model, and she ended up moving to plus size modeling, even though she technically wasn't necessarily a plus size model, just because she couldn't take how brutal the body image stuff was so that's like another interesting thing too, where I wonder how many people switch into plus size modeling, not because they're even technically plus size, but just for the sake of not feeling like they can only eat a cube of cheese when they're about to faint.
Oh my god.
Like Emily's
famous diet. I eat absolutely nothing, and when I feel like I'm about to faint, I eat a cube of cheese.
I think that is the one way in which the movie saves itself from aging terribly, is there is a little bit of mocking.
Yes, she also says right after that,
the body image
stuff. She says right after that, I'm one stomach flu away from my goal weight.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a certain amount of satirizing the ways in which women treat their bodies horribly in order to fit into a certain image.
Again, to go back to, difficult job environments, when I was teaching, I was eating a piece of toast at 6 a.m. and then driving through Taco Bell on my way home every day, and that was it.
Yeah, I mean, I think, in college, I weighed probably, 50 pounds less than I weigh now. Was basically only eating Pop-Tarts and Snapples, but that was all I ate all day. It's like a bag of Pop-Tarts and a Snapple.
Have a serving of fruit in them.
Yes, they do. I survived.
Hey, and the Snapple was part of your education. You learned a lot of great things from those bottles, I'm sure. And it was a defense mechanism.
Yes, because they used to be glass back then, so you could always use the glass bottle to defend yourself if you got mugged. I don't recommend that diet to anybody. You should eat real food.
Yes, I agree. I do think, and coming back kind of to Stanley Tucci, the very passionate speech he gives about reading Runway as a child always makes me think of the bit that Carrie says at some point in Sex and the City, where she was like, in college or when I first moved to New York, sometimes I'd buy Vogue instead of dinner. I felt it fed me more.
It is interesting too, because that's another example of where on the one hand you're kind of like, cringe, that's terrible, you should eat real food, And then on the other hand, too, it does kind of make your soul ache a little bit because there is this tension between there are people who genuinely care about this world and are really passionate about it and invested in it. And on the other hand, it's also been so toxic to them. And that just is like, I do think this movie does a really good job of wrestling that with that, even if there are some moments that haven't aged as well. Yeah. But yeah.
It kind of goes hand in hand with the work environment, because at one point Emily says, like, I get 20 minutes for lunch, you get 15.
Yeah. You did also want to talk about age in this movie.
Oh, no, I think I already covered it. Just like, I feel like
okay.
she is presented, I feel like she feels older, Andy, in the movie than 22. And that's part of the problem for me, I think I have when watching it, is that in the book, I feel like you get because you just spend so much more time in her head, as you can in a book. It's not the movie's fault.
Okay. Yeah.
You spend so much more time in her head, you really feel the naivete.
The only thing I wanted to add to age is that's interesting that you thought about Andy, how we perceive Andy's age.
And maybe it's just an Anne Hathaway thing. It's like, I know she's older in that role than 22.
She also always comes across as very mature.
So to me, Andy in the movie feels a lot older, and I have a harder time justifying the dumb decisions she makes and forgetting, like, she's making dumb decisions because she's fucking 22.
Yeah, and I also think that, the big way that age plays a role in this, though, is that as much as Miranda creates this toxic and very anti-feminist environment for the women who work for her, at the end, she's almost falls victim to it because they want somebody younger to run Runway.
Yes, because Jacqueline's younger.
Jacqueline is younger. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's also that. This is another way in which I think the movie does a really good job of like showing these tensions and complexities, is that, we actually have a moment where we feel a little bit bad for Miranda because we know she's given her whole life to this place and they're going to replace her for somebody younger, who's not necessarily as good or better.
I'm curious to see how that plays out in the sequel, because it is 20 years later. So...
And Miranda is in it.
And she looks like she hasn't aged a day.
I know. I thought that too. It's like, Meryl Streep, you got
As much as I disagree with Roger Ebert, he, I think, has some interesting things to say about, like, age in general, and, like, both, like, in the movie, like, the characters.
What he sure did about Princess Diaries.
But, like, the age of the characters and the sort of way that the story feels because of their age, and then also, like, the target audience age. And he kind of, I can't decide if he feels this is a good nostalgic thing or if he feels like it's kind of hacky until I get to another publication that he wrote in where I'm like, okay, he thinks it's hacky. He writes, quote, "When I was young, there was a series of books about boys and girls dreaming of the careers they'd have as grown-ups. I can't remember what the titles were, but let's say one was Don Brown, Boy Announcer. Don dreams of being a radio announcer, and one day when the announcer falls ill at the scene of a big story, he grabs the mic and gets his chance. The Devil Wears Prada is being positioned as a movie for grown-ups, and others who know who, what, when, or where Prada is." That pissed me off because I'm like, you know what the fuck Prada is, Roger. Anyway. "But while watching it, I had the uncanny notion, at last, one of these books from my childhood had been filmed. Call it Andy Sachs, Girl Editor." And then he goes on with a weird kind of quippy examples of, like, the kind of language in those stories that he gave us an example of being echoed in the screen. And, like, I don't entirely disagree with it in terms of the way the character is supposed to feel. So, like, the example of, like, fake internal dialogue he gives us is, quote, "I was impressed when I first saw the famous Miranda Priestley. She had the poise of Meryl Streep, the authority of Condoleezza Rice, and was better dressed than anyone I'd ever met, except the Northwestern Dean of Women. And now she was calling my name. Gulp." I don't think that's how Andy comes across in the movie, but I think that's how she's supposed to come across, as this, like, I don't know what I'm doing, and everything's so impressive and scary.
I mean, but isn't that, like, how you feel at 22 at your first? If you had a job with somebody that big and impressive, I mean, I feel like you would feel that way a little bit. But
and then in another publication, funny. So in this first one he gave it 2 out of 5 stars, and the next one he admits it another additional star, but then ends his thoughts with, "Isn't this movie just an equivalent of an after-school special for teenage girls?" So I can't figure out where he
God
lands.
forbid teenage girls see themselves in a serious Hollywood
Right?
movie.
I think interestingly enough with Barbie too, this feels like like I don't think we could have made Barbie as it is now in 2006, but this feels like the kind of movie that like feels the same as if I had been, you know, as old as I was in 2006 watching Barbie for the first time. Does that make sense?
Yes. I agree. Yes. Were there other things you want to talk about, or do you want to do tarot?
Oh shit, let's do tarot. Okay.
Tarot.
So I've got 2 for today. Do you want to guess who I picked? Because you seemed surprised that I had only done...
Well, do we get Andy and
We
Miranda?
get Andy and Miranda. Okay. So...
That's who I want tarot for.
All right, so, for Andy, I've drawn the Ace of Wands reversed. So I definitely felt like drawn to wands for Andy because they are the suit of creativity and of like inspiration. And she's very idealistic at the beginning and wanting this big career in like journalism and writing and a creative career. Reversed because so in regular position, the Ace of Wands is like new creative opportunity. Reversed, it can symbol like a lack of purpose or a lack of direction. So in Andy, I see this not exactly as a lack of purpose. She like knows what she wants her purpose to be. She wants to be a journalist. But what she lacks is the real world experience to get her there, just because, as we've said so many times, she's fucking 22. I saw an explanation of this card somewhere that described it as not now, but maybe later. And I think that fits well with Andy in this story specifically, because like by the end of the film, she's got an interview for the position that seems like much more suited to, but it's partly because of the grunt work that she did at Runway. You know, she's the guy gets the facts. It's like, if you don't fire her, you're an idiot. So I would say Ace of Wands reversed because she has all of this like potential for opportunity, but like we said with Nigel's great speech of like, people would die to work here, you only deign to work here. I get really the impression that in the beginning of the movie, Andy is very much, she feels like she's above doing the hard work to get her somewhere. And then she realizes the hard work, regardless of where it is what gets you places, at least in the publishing industry. Because if she works hard and can show that works hard in the way Miranda wants her to work hard, she'll give her a good, recommendation. Okay, so then for Miranda, I had a lot of ideas, but I was definitely picturing, I was like, I want like some kind of either royalty or triumph card with like a single powerful female figure. I went through the ones I could think of. The one I settled on was the High Priestess.
Appropriate for Miranda Priestley.
Yes. Because this card, interestingly enough, one of the key words is sacred knowledge. And that's what really struck me with Miranda. She has the keys to the kingdom. And she fucking knows it.
She's on the inside track.
She's on the inside track. The things we talked about, the florals for spring, the cerulean sweater monologue. Like, she has built this magazine into what it is. And, like, even in, there's the scene where they go to, like, the preview. In the book, the part where they go to, like, preview James's line. And there's the whole part where Nigel explains like what her different facial expressions mean. Like, she holds so much of like knowledge of this industry and how it runs and how she wants it to run in her hands. Is she a total bitch about it? Yes, but she's 100% a bitch who knows her industry and doles out the knowledge when it suits her and when it helps her to succeed over others. So the High Priestess felt appropriate for that, just because of the sacred knowledge.
I love that reading, and can I just say with her, so her iconic line, her refrain throughout the movie is,
That's all.
That's all. And I love that.
That is in the book. I appreciate that.
Nice. When you think about that line with your tarot reading, it's so condescending, it's so annoying in the movie, but it's also like so good the way she delivers it. But it's also like what you're saying is we know that's not all. Because we know that there's a whole other world that Miranda has knowledge of that we don't get access to. So that's all is so condescending and such a lie. And so you've been shut out of the real all of it all.
So one more thing I will say from critics, because someone did have a really interesting thing to say about her voice. Eleanor Ringel Gillespie from the Cox News Service also says about Streep as Miranda, quote, she doesn't make Miranda a caricatured monster, nor does she play for sympathy. Instead, she keeps Miranda cool, quiet, and commanding. Someone able to paralyze underlings with her Medusa stare, and keeps her voice at a moderate, reasonable tone as if to mask the fact she is anything but. And I think the perfect example of that is the perfect that's all is on Andy's first day. She calls her into the office. She calls her Emily at first. And she calls her in and she gives her this whole list of stuff. And then as she's about to leave, she goes, "And Emily?" And then Andy turns around and then she just gives her this slow up and down look and then sits at her desk and goes, "That's all."
And we know it's not. And also, I mean, full circle, but talking about Andy's sense of identity as seen through clothing, she doesn't even get to, I mean, when she does get called Andrea, it's not even how she says her name, and it's not the nickname that she prefers. But for a long time, she doesn't even get to have her name. She's just another Emily.
Yes. Just another Emily.
Yeah.
Oh.
And we know Emily is just another cog in the wheel.
Yes, in the book, I don't remember the name of the other assistant that promoted, and then Emily got her spot. But in the book, she calls them all interchangeably, all three names. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
So, yeah. Final thoughts?
I think that's all of my thoughts.
Then my final thought is just, that's all.
And mine is to jobs that pay the rent.
You can find your Silver Nitrate Witches on various online platforms at LJ Valenza and at Bellang303. Thanks to Fine Motor for the use of their songs Highway Moon and Movie. You can check out more about the band at finemotormusic.com. Thanks for listening. Stay witchy and keep watching movies.